Hello everybody, this is the Prime P1 intelligent guitar pedal from More. Doesn't really look like a pedal, but it is when it's plugged into one of these foot switches. Thank you very much to More for sending this to me. I've had loads of fun with it the last few weeks. So what is it? It basically tries to do everything for your guitar, right? It's got settings for electric, for bass, and for acoustic. We're going to talk mainly about acoustic today. But it's your pedal board, it's your interface for your computer or your phone, it's your guitar simulator, it's your looper, your drum machine, it's your Bluetooth receiver for playing backing tracks, and it's your DI or preamp for when you're playing live. And it's also a pretty handy headphone amp for if you're traveling or something. So yeah, does kind of a crazy amount of things for such a little tiny package, little tiny box. Looks a little bit like an old school iPod, if you're old enough to know what that is. Slightly evil looking one actually. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. So we're going to do some demos today. As I say, we're going to focus mainly on acoustic guitar because there's been loads of videos on electric and there's been lots of tutorial videos. So we're going to gloss over some of the effects, but we're just going to look at what it really sounds like, whether it really makes your guitar sound better. Because it's one thing to have all of these different effects and functions, but it's another thing to actually make you sound good. So I'm going to do some demos initially in my kind of usual slightly crazy percussive style, and then I'll do a demo of the looper where I'll just do, play some more conventional stuff. You'll get to hear what it sounds like, just strumming chords, playing melody lines, stuff like that. So here you go, here's some sounds you can get from this pedal. Okay, so there you go. There's some sounds from the Prime P1. Definitely get a variety of different sounds, lots of effects on this thing. I should say that I just recorded that using this as the interface. So I took a USB out from here and then plugged my headphones into the headphone socket at the top for a monitor. And that was it. I recorded through Logic. Yeah, I mean, one thing we should say is that, as you can see from the pedal, there are hardly any controls. You get a wheel and you get a button. Those are your controls on the unit, right? So the way you control it is through the app. So you download the app, and then, basically what I did is I just spent an evening playing around with the app, finding some different effects, different sounds, and saving them. And then I can just cycle through them with the foot switch. Okay, yeah, next let's just listen to some more conventional techniques, right? So I'm going to play around with the looper a little bit and the drum machine, and we'll see how that sounds. that was the looper function on the Prime P1. So we've heard a bunch of different sounds, different effects, and the big question is, what do I think? Am I going to keep it? Am I going to sell it on? Do I think this is like the future of guitar pedals? Well, I'm definitely going to keep it for sure. I can think of a bunch of uses for this thing. I was worried that the effects were going to sound a little bit digital or cheap or nasty, but I thought that it did the important things really well. So for me, the most important effects are compression, EQ, reverb, and maybe your guitar sims. And this pedal does all of that stuff perfectly fine. I mean, the compression on it was nice, and the reverbs were really nice. They didn't sound overly digital, they didn't sound unnatural. And also EQ is probably the most important effect you're going to have on your acoustic guitar, right? I mean, my Faith has a bit of boominess around 1K, and I can just roll the mids off a little bit on all my settings, set the mid shift correctly, and it just helps balance the sound out a huge amount. I mean, you know, I can just plug straight into the computer and I've immediately got a nice balanced sound from the guitar. So really, on that basis, I would keep it. It's obviously got loads of other effects that you can use. I think the chorus was nice and subtle if it's dialed in correctly. And the distortion was pretty fun as well. When I was using it with the looper, I kind of just felt like I was playing an electric guitar. It was quite a warm, fat sound, nice crispy highs. Other effects, I mean, as I say, the sims were really nice. Lots of distinct sounds with the guitar simulations. Lots of old guitars you're sort of sounding a bit like. I mean, I don't know how much it really sounds like those old guitars, but just in terms of making your guitar sound more natural, adding some of the air frequencies back in. So who do I think it's for? Well, I'm going to use it for recording. If I need to record something quickly, or if I've got my laptop out with me to a rehearsal or another studio, or even just another room in the house, I can use this. And I think another thing I'll use it for is busking. Busking is going to be a huge thing for this. I mean, I won't be taking my pedal board around with me again. If you compare like putting this in your pocket compared to sort of taking a whole suitcase full of pedals with you, which is what I would have done otherwise, you know, it's obviously a no-brainer. I'm going to use this. And then as an extension of that, small gigs, pub gigs, hotel gigs, definitely. I think if you're doing a big show, if you're doing a festival show, you've probably already got a lot of nice stuff and you're going to take your best gear with you. You're probably not going to use this, right? It's not really the market for it. So I think that reflects who's going to buy it. I think people who don't have an effects unit yet for their acoustic guitar, they haven't played around with effects very much, they haven't played around with looping, they haven't done any recording with it, I think this is a bit of a no-brainer for 150 quid. It's going to do everything. Other things to say, do I think it's the future of guitar pedals? I don't know. I guess I can imagine other companies following suit and producing something a bit like this. I guess depending on how well this sells. But it seems to be such a big market for it, I imagine people are going to be interested. So it's not going to replace, you know, there's a reason why Strymon sell reverb pedals for 500 quid. You know, there is a market for that as well. There's some people who really want that. They want the best reverb they can get, and you obviously won't get that out of this because it does everything else and it's only 150 quid. So, you know, it's not going to replace those high-end analog pedals, but it will give you a nice reverb. It will give you nice effects out of it. They're going to improve the sound of the guitar. They don't sound nasty or cheap. So for that, I'll definitely be keeping it and I'll be using it a lot more.